right. So today, or this evening, we are going to discuss the topic of loneliness, and we're going to discuss the different types of loneliness. And this topic was actually inspired by an article that we located on Psychology Today. So here's the article here from Psychology Today, written by Dr. Kyle D. Killian. So in this particular article, Dr. Kyle spoke about what's called epistemic loneliness, as you can see here on my screen. So in this article, he discusses how there is a type of loneliness called epistemic loneliness, and it's a specific kind of loneliness that comes from when we're being unable to share our thoughts, our ideas. So in this particular article, he gives different examples. And one specific example that we can apply to us as therapists is, as therapists, we may have certain times where we want to discuss human behavior, or we're discussing different interventions that we use. And we're talking about these with people who are like in our everyday lives. And because they're not therapists, they may not understand the type of topics that we discuss, or the various interventions that we use, right? So this particular article also inspired me to pretty much look at other forms of loneliness as well, right? So when working with our clients, we may have clients who have emotional loneliness. So this occurs when there's a lack of close or intimate relationships that they may have, with their family members, or they might not have friends to be able to discuss different intimate topics with. And there's also social loneliness, where you may have a client who isolates themselves and they feel like they don't belong, or they're not a part of any social networks or a community. And then what is really common to us, people of color is, or other people from different cultural backgrounds, you may experience cultural or identity-based loneliness, where you may find yourself disconnected from others due to your cultural background, your race, your religion, your language, or your values, right? So today we're just going to kind of discuss how we're able to help our clients cope with these types of loneliness and different interventions that we may use, okay? So did anybody want to go ahead and add anything to the topic that we are discussing today?
Yeah, I just want to kind of add on the epistemic loneliness. Like you mentioned, right, for different people, it could be different thing, different professionals, but just talking about people that, we come across every day. It's just an example, but it could just very well be something simple as an artist, like a young artist who is really into, their art, but when they share it with their friend group, they might just kind of, not really understand what the art is trying to say, or the friends are maybe just not into art at all. So that could, lead somebody to potentially stop sharing their sketches because no one gets really what they're trying to express, like their internal feelings, right? So they begin to kind of feel not seen. And so they kind of begin to withdraw, feel invisible. And even though they're in with a group full of people, so even being around a bunch of people, or I mean, for example, like I like talking about space and black holes in the universe and stuff like that, right? And I find that only certain amount of people kind of comprehend what I'm trying to say and are interested in what I want to talk about. And I find that, it just really depends. I mean, I could be with a group of 10 people, and when I start talking about, oh, how is the universe formed? A lot of them are like, what, they're not really getting my point, or they're not seeing where I'm coming from. They're not seeing my perspective. So even in those kind of situations, even though I'm around a whole bunch of people, I'm still feeling not connected, feeling unseen, unheard. So I thought that could be a good example. And like you said, different cultural backgrounds, right? Another example is, just say you're an immigrant, or, you different cultural background, and moving to a new place and trying to explain to your peers or your friends about how things were for you back home, like your worldwide, like your worldview.
Mhm.
But a lot of times, it's really nobody's fault, because the other person just doesn't know what the culture you come from. They don't know your traditions, they don't know your backgrounds, they don't know how you do certain things. And that in itself can feel really lonely as well. So I think trying to maybe help them kind of meet you in the middle, kind of
Mhm.
explaining a little bit of, hey, like, where I come from, like success, for example, success could be, depending on like an individualistic and like a, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Collectivistic society. Yeah, sorry. Success could be really different, right? So if I'm trying to explain, coming from like a collectivistic background, success is usually something that's more towards family harmony, or just more towards how the family looks. So
Mhm.
your individual success is eventually tied into the collectivistic part of it. Does that
Mhm.
make sense? So explaining that to somebody that comes only from the individualistic part of it could be, there could be a gap there. And I think trying to connect that bridge between the two could help
Mhm.
the other person understand where you're coming from.
Exactly. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Yes, and Dora, you had a really good point there about breaking things down into a little bit more simplistic terms. Especially when we're talking about topics that we have a lot of knowledge about. It's really easy to use jargon. Jargon be terms that are very specific to the field of your knowledge.
Mhm.
And a lot of times people don't really understand the jargon. So when we're trying to explain those things, it's to make it more simple for other people to understand. We can try to cut out the jargon. We can try to simplify terms. Maybe if we have like a really large idea that we want to communicate, breaking that idea down into smaller, kind of more digestible ideas is a lot easier to communicate to others.
Absolutely. I also think of it like going to the doctor, right? Or even like if I'm hanging out with a group full of, people, physicians, and what they talk about in their group is definitely, I don't understand more than half of it because the terminology they use and the references they make, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Another way you can do is try to, if you, for instance, your friend is a mechanic, but you yourself are a therapist, you can try to put it into terms that they may understand. For instance, last night I was venting about having to write all these reports, and I was like, yeah, I hate this. This is really annoying. It feels like it's not really connected to my job, but it is. And I was like, imagine you had to just like take, I don't know, 56 tires off a bunch of cars. It's connected to your job, but it's something that really isn't kind of applying your mechanistic abilities.
Mhm. Correct. And so does anyone have anything to add about the other types of loneliness and how maybe other people can cope with like emotional loneliness or social loneliness?
Actually, I do.
Mhm.
I feel like hearing about this types of loneliness, and I feel like we also had a discussion the other day when we were talking about groups, and also we are also in a well, we're like groups have a great way of giving that emotional and social support, especially since people are there for like a very specific reason.
Mhm.
Even though everyone's experiences are not necessarily the same of how they got there, they're still able to express and understand the fact that, hey, even though our experiences are different, we've still reached in this place that this is what we're dealing with.
Mhm.
So being able to at least have someone who kind of will be able to understand where you're coming from or even how you got here is a great thing to have. And groups are proven to be able to help with that kind of communication and social relationship.
Mhm.
So I feel like that's definitely a huge benefit that group therapy gives to people that just honestly just works and given the time and
Mhm.
everything.
Mhm.
Also, it's also great to know, and also kind of going back to dealing with the other type of women we were talking about. I'm terrible at saying the name. Um,
The
Epistemic.
epidemic.
Like we're also in an age of technology that
Yeah.
it's pretty much it's become a little bit easier finding people that are in the same interest of you. If
Mhm.
like there's things like forums, blogs, forums, Discord chats. There's a lot of ways of being able to put yourself in a situation where you have people with the same type of thinking as you do.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to have that connection with someone who has similar interests, or like we've talked about earlier, at least willing to see you like halfway, is extremely important to be able to like subdue like that feeling of loneliness. Because like, wow, I finally feel like someone's hearing me out
Mm-hmm.
because we gone through the same thing. Like they understand what we're talking about. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really good that we live in a world right now that it's so much easier to find people that kind of have a similar thinking. It just also just takes a little bit of time and effort and being able to be there.
Mm-hmm. Correct. And I also feel like connecting with people like at your workspace. Like, for example, I've connected with Sindora and our colleague Vashti. I feel like by me connecting with people who are in the similar field, it does make conversations easier, and they're able to pretty much empathize with anything that I may be going through at work, or pretty much understand the jargon that I'm using as well. So you're right, like finding those communities with like-minded individuals, or individuals who are in the same industry, is also really good to help combat epistemic loneliness as well. Okay. And how about the social loneliness, or for someone who may have moved to a new city, or how would you all maybe help individuals cope with that?
I want to contribute something on the social loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
Like what Sindira said was awesome, and Gerald, about finding your community, and Sindira said breaking it down into small pieces for people to understand. But like, let me give you an instance. Imagine people who are maybe a single lady who is among her married friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody's discussing, my husband said this or my partner said that, and she's single and she doesn't have a husband story to share. In that case, she could just sit there and just look silly, like, okay, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to share. And in that case, even if they break it down, she understands what they're saying, they break it down, she knows, but she still feels lonely in that circle because somehow it's not her circle.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, so what does the therapist do? Preach acceptance is good. Acceptance, but on whose side? Is it acceptance from the single lady or acceptance on the side of the married ladies, for instance? So are you preaching to the married ladies to accept that, okay, you have a single friend and yeah, she's not married, I don't have all that story to share? Or are you preaching to the single lady to accept that these people are married, or is it both ways? But I know that acceptance on both sides goes a long way, but you know, who are you going to tell it to first? And,
Mm-hmm.
how far would you go telling the acceptance story? That's on one end. Then for the epistemic, I was thinking, for instance, like, okay, I'll use myself as an example. When I started, I work in property management right now. And I remember when I started a while back, and my boss was talking to somebody about dry walls and all that. In fact, I just stood there looking silly. So loneliness can make you feel unintelligent in addition to not fitting in. It can also make you feel unintelligent. Like, they're talking about things you have no idea. And honestly, at that stage, even if he had broken down what a drywall meant to me, I wouldn't have understood what it was. So he could break it down into bits and pieces. I still would not know until maybe as time goes on, I get to understand the terminology. So, at that point, I didn't just feel lonely. I didn't just feel isolated. I felt stupid as well.
Yeah.
So loneliness can bring all those mental feelings of, oh, you're not intelligent enough to grab this, or you're not this, you're not that. So how do we combat that? Is it psychoeducation about knowing your worth, accepting who you are, and
Mhm.
trying to build yourself? Some of those things can help with loneliness, like telling the person, yes, I know that it's not easy where you are, but you can actually grow, you can actually read about this, you can actually do this or that. So psychoeducation will also go a long way there.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very excellent point that you made, Chika, because we're gonna actually talk about like the interventions that we could use for our clients. Like for example, one of the interventions we can use is cognitive reframing. So sometimes individuals may feel like they may isolate themselves because they may say, hey, I'm unworthy, or I might not feel like I belong to be in this space. So we can pretty much just break down with the client, like, why do you feel like this? Like do some strength-based, training with the client to pretty much help them understand like, hey, you are worthy to be here, So that's a very good point that you pretty much made there about that, and also providing that psychoeducation, like you said. And then also, we could encourage our clients to, like Gerald was saying, join social groups that may have similar interest that you have. Me and Sindora was actually having a conversation about this today, because I'm from Florida. I don't know if you guys know this, but like I kind of moved here without not pretty much knowing anyone except for like one person. But by me connecting with Sindora, I was able to find out that she was kind of, dealing with the similar feelings that I was feeling. So it's good to, just start a conversation with someone. If you see someone in the elevator, smile at them. Vashti told me she's met, people, in her apartment area, which is really good. Like you smile at someone, say, hey, compliment someone. That's another great thing that clients can do to kind of help them get the conversation started with someone new. Did you guys have like any other tips to kind of help, anyone who may be dealing with loneliness?
Yeah, Maria, that's a really good point. Doing that behavioral aspect, that behavioral activation aspect, and starting small too. Like even if you're just taking a walk around your block and you just nod at somebody, it's okay. That's a little bit of social interaction that can really help combat loneliness. And then, hey, eventually you ask some lady, hey, can I say hi to your dog? Or like, or just try to strike up a little conversation that way. That can go a long way to kind of battling loneliness, especially for all those people out there that are working from home. You get up, you're still in your house all day. It's good to get out and do a little walk, say what's up to somebody. And that can really make the world feel a little bit more connected too, right?
Okay. So does anyone have anything else to add?
Not necessarily add, but more of like an agreement, especially with what Bruce said, like being out in your community, going for a walk, like, and also you brought up an example, like a good example for social loneliness is just the fact that, for example, you and Sindora, you guys aren't from the same place at all. You guys aren't from the same place, but you guys shared that similar experience. And for Bruce, it's just like, we might not be the same people, but we're in the same community, having that, like, starting that, like, repertoire, like, talk to somebody that's in your vicinity is just like, we might not have the best in common. Like, you have a dog, I don't have a dog, but we're in the same neighborhood. You probably have to deal with the same homeowner association. I don't know. It's just like it still brings up a conversation you guys can talk about. So it's like we said, start small and can grow bigger than that. So
I just want to add to that. I think it's connection, right? Like, especially if you move to a new place or, you're just unfamiliar with your surroundings, it can start to feel really lonely. And so, like all of you mentioned, whether that's just, it's starting really small, which people don't think really help, but like, just like smiling at somebody in the elevator, or the more we do these little things, it kind of shows us that a lot of us have a lot of things in common, but it's really about finding, what you guys have in common. And the only way that could come to light is, striking that conversation, right? A lot of people think, oh, we don't know them, right? Like, these are all just like normal thoughts we have. Oh, we don't know them. They might be going through something else. What if they don't say hi to me? And just all these little things. But once you get past those and you see that, hey, at least 1 out of 10 people will have something to say back, right? Oh, cute dog. Are you taking me to the dog park? Oh yeah. You guys go to the dog park, make a little conversation there. And then you find out, oh, we have something else in common. We love to eat. You find you go find a place to eat. So it's really taking that small initial steps. And also, I mean, just because, you know, you guys are in the same place, also it could also mean you could be seeing things differently, right? And that's okay too. That's not really like a setback or anything, I don't think, because it just gives you more of a, you know, perception of how this person is viewing their inner. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So when somebody, I mean, a lot of times, you know, it happens on an everyday, day-to-day basis. Just because I hold the door open to some people don't mean they thank me. Or, you know, some people thank me and be like, oh, thank you, you know, have a great day. Or you look great today. It's a little compliments. It's a little, I guess it's more of like a confidence boost as well, right? When you have these interactions. And I feel like with loneliness, your confidence is already kind of at a lower level where you're kind of, you know, cocooned in, and just, yeah, going out and taking that small step will help us open up to things that we didn't know were possible.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
I
think
also
that's a
think
really
that
good. Oh, no, so you go off.
I feel like rewarding yourself also for those small steps that you take, because these, like, doing certain things like complimenting people, going out of your way to start a conversation is a small step, but it's easier said than done. So I feel like kind of rewarding yourself, and just like, even if the interaction didn't go the way that you planned it, it's just like, I still got out of my comfort zone to do something like that. And who knows, the next time things will go my way. I can put a personal example. Like, I went on my comfort zone because someone posted some art. And I said, this was really cool. And we started a conversation. That person is like actually my best friend now. So it's just like the small things.
Yeah.
Okay. So if anybody doesn't have, or if no one has anything else to add, we can end it right here.
I just wanted to add on to something Sindorth said. It is definitely the small things. I think the small things can really kind of add up and get that momentum going. And the small things are also the easiest thing to do. Like just nodding at a guy on the street is a lot easier than joining your local pickleball league or something. You know, so start there. If you're feeling lonely, just get outside and just do something easy. You know, make it really, really easy for yourself. Lower that barrier to failure to almost zero and see how it goes.
Great advice, guys.
Exactly. And then reframe the experience, right? Don't say I'm lonely. Just, you know, use some other words and be like, yeah, I'm lonely now, but I will meet people. You know, I'm gonna get dressed. You know, once you look good, you feel good. I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna put a smile on my face, and just those little things, like Bruce said. Okay.
And also just like understanding that loneliness is a part of life, right? It's not something that we need to hide from or fear from, or, you know, kind of push away. The more we try to explore it, the more answers we get, right? Just connecting to your body again, and right.
Exactly. Well, we're gonna end our discussion here, and have a good night, everybody.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Good night, everyone.